I've written and, frankly, rewritten this cold open a few times. Before Saturday, it and this entire show were going to be upbeat. After the first general strike in 80 years, it was hard not to be. But then, on Saturday, Alex Pretti was executed. I can't not mention that. I can't not talk about the things happening around it. But there's also a lot I can't say because you've probably already heard it. Or, frankly, it's a developing story, and this is a weekly news show. Thus, I have some concerns about sharing information that may rapidly become out of date. And finally, I think we need to be reminded of the things that fill our lives with meaning worth fighting for. The stories we tell each other, the joys we share. So let's make fun of some fascists and discuss some media. And welcome to Muttday Morning News. I'm the titular Mutt Fen. Now let's get to some news. There won't be much obedience training this week. The situation in the US has been developing and fluctuating too frequently to report anything to my standard of journalistic rigor. But that doesn't mean none. First, I have a personal beef with Lindsay Halligan, the insurance lawyer who Trump illegally appointed as a U.S. attorney back in September to charge James Comey and Letitia James for spurious political crimes that, didn't really happen. And let's not forget that time she sent a journalist at Law Dork a bunch of signal messages before trying to use off the record like a magic spell. Or, when it came out, James Comey's indictment may not have been seen by a grand jury after they kiboshed the first version. Or back on November 4th, when Judge Cameron McGowan Curry ruled Halligan's appointment was unlawful. In some twisted-ass moon logic, Halligan decided that meant she was only appointed unlawfully. Obviously, she can keep doing the job anyway, or could. Last week, the District Chief Justice Mary Locke shut that right down after Halligan appealed. Kristi Noem, for whom there are articles of impeachment in circulation, call your reps to sign them and push for H.R. 7123, the Abolish ICE Act. Kristi Noem has announced Halligan officially stepped down on the 20th. Why do I have a personal beef with Lindsay Halligan? Well, had she been properly appointed as a temporary or interim U.S. attorney, she'd have had 120 days before either going through a Senate confirmation hearing or vacating the job, and she started in early September. This show's first episode was on August 11th. I have personally been waiting to see if my show, Muttday, has the staying power to outlast the, least vital of the fascists of this administration, and what do you know? Not only has my show managed to outlast both her theoretical max on a interim appointment, but also her entire appointment to the federal government. Good riddance, girly pup. Hey, this one gets heavy, but it will be the only instance of such this week. Go to standwithminnesota.com to learn how to help more directly, or, again, call your senators, reps, whatever, demand they refuse to fund the DHS, sign on to H.R. 7123, the Abolish ICE Act, as well as impeaching these fuckers, and if you need to, go to the time code here, or jump to the next chapter if you need to skip the rest of this. I do not blame you. Having said all of that, I don't think I need to explain that ICE shot a third person in as many weeks. I don't think I need to say ICE agents very obviously and visibly beat then executed VA nurse Alex Pretti. I don't think I need to tell you the DHS went straight to slandering the man we all can watch them execute from multiple horrifying angles. I do need to tell you the woman who was there and recorded one of those videos, who works as a children's entertainer, specifically a face painter, has signed sworn affidavits about what she saw and is now in hiding, having been warned feds are hunting her. I do need to tell you, no, you don't need to see the video. You already know what it shows. Traumatizing yourself doesn't help anyone, it just hurts you. I do need to tell you about the Dilley, Texas concentration camp I've mentioned before. It was notable for being a camp specifically for holding children and mothers, which, when I last reported on it, was hiring an AI teaching company because they'd been holding children long enough. State law ticked over requiring they provide educators. Let that sink in for a second. It's also where ICE sent the Minnesota 5-year-old they'd used as bait to kidnap his father. After news of Alex Pretti's killing broke, so too did a protest inside the Dilley concentration camp. These are the families, the neighbors, the friends, the people, and the children. Folks like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretti are knowingly putting their lives in harm's way to defend, and they're fighting back as best they can too. Okay, heavier topics done, so let's jump into... Technically, I've thrown this story into Hounds Byte, and you'll maybe see why in a minute. We're talking about a poorly thought-out government mascot for a specific brand of world-destroying energy companies, but this is actually a mostly positive story, I swear. We are talking about Coalie. No, not the main character of Danny Blue's 2024 self-published children's book, Coalie and the Great Mystery. No, not the mule who became a mascot for Penn State after he helped build the main building in 1957, old Coalie. No, not the Galarian Pokemon Roly-Coly, Caracol, or Colossal. No, also not the edutainment mascot, the Drample Bay Coal Terminal, debuted in 2014, Hector the Lump of Coal, or the other Hector having to do with coal. Look, I ended up having to research some weird stuff for this. There's a long-forgotten Thomas the Tank Engine character. But the mascot of the Office of Surface Mining, Reclamation, and Enforcement debuted last week, Coalie. I should note, the department goes by OSMRE, because their primary focus is not surface mining, but fixing the damage both environmental and economic surface mining has done. That being the reclamation bit, and enforcing the regulations the Trump administration has gutted. That, being the enforcement bit. I bring it up because in her debut on a site whose images don't scale properly on mobile in 2026, she focused on OSMRE's work renewing the communities poisoned by mining companies, bit likes, and revitalizing the same communities whose entire economies collapsed when their local mining companies pulled out. Which is why the Secretary of the Interior, Doug Burgum, simply had to prompt an LLM to regurgitate a new image of Coalie, repping her org with the wrong acronym. Otherwise, his mine baby mine crap would ring a little bit more hollow than it already does. Would you be surprised online trans communities have immediately fallen in love with Coalie? You probably shouldn't be. She's cute, being used by a government to push their preferred lie to everyone's detriment, and those same oppressors expect her to burn gladly for it. It's very on brand for us. Speaking of AI-generated slop, hey, let's discuss some easy ways to spot faked images using both that Coalie post and this Facebook post. The post is real, the image used in it is AI slop. Looking at the Coalie post, we have one big giveaway, the flag. The United States flag has 50 stars split into 9 rows in an alternating pattern of 5 6-star rows and 4 5-star rows. It also has 13 stripes, alternating between 7 red stripes and 6 white stripes. The flag Secretary Burgum posted has only 46 stars and 11 stripes. Coalie herself is blushing, and her otherwise consistent freckles have shifted. The longer I look at the dump truck, the more it hurts my brain. The cab looks like a semi-truck. The tires don't match. There's only one side view mirror. I'm not even sure what's in the truck bed. Then there's whatever this yellow thing is. From a distance, it almost reads like a steamroller or backhoe, but blurs into noise the closer you look. And finally, there's the tower, assembled out of mismatched bars and empty cells. This chicken wire thing hanging off of it. And I think it's supposed to be a conveyor belt, but its perspective is fucked and it's just feeding into the hollow tower center. As for the snowblower one, the first tip is in the post itself, Portland 2020. The 2020 protests began in May, and Portland gets an average of 4.5 inches of snow all year. The city simply does not get snow like that, much less after May. Second, it's too clean. There's only one person in the far distant background, no cars for a block, the two foci follow the rule of threes to a degree you'd expect from a professional closed shoot, what the LLM was assuredly trained on, not the middle of a protest. Then there's the details. This isn't a normal way to hold a leaf blower, this isn't a real brand, and this dude's shoes are a funny giveaway. The bot started to generate sneakers before the boots, leading to this weird dual-layered shoe thing. Then there's the agent. That's not how pepper spray looks when fired. It's also missing the firing mechanism and grips feds use. This antenna on his back is from the LLM referencing soldiers, not feds. And then there's the rig. There's so many questions about that. The camo and the assorted straps just sort of blur into messy noise with nothing actually in any of the pockets or anything like that. Generative AI is a tool of these fascists. Do not use it. Also, the leaf blower thing is half true. In July 2020, the Washington Post ran a story on Portlanders using leaf blowers to dispense tear gas, not pepper spray. And the important bit, while it worked to a degree, feds and Portland police simply started arresting anyone holding a leaf blower. I've got two more micro stories that I wanted to throw in that don't quite make it to being their own fully fleshed story. Firstly, I am not covering any of the lobotomite-esque statements made by Microsoft or NVIDIA executives last week, mostly because Cameron Louder of Checkpoint already said everything I could dream to way better than I, could also dream to. So you should check it out, and frankly, if you enjoy this show, you will probably like Checkpoint, as I'm pretty openly inspired by a lot of Lur's work. And secondly, I know we all feel the fascistic rot creeping into every aspect of our lives, but we're going to win. I don't know if I can stress this enough, but the Chuds have lost the mandate from even the subreddits. Sure, r/Minnesota has been an organizational locus for months, but that's Minnesota. They're just kind of like that. Now, after the murder of Alex Pretti, a VA ICU nurse, the r/nursing subreddit changed their icon to a picture of Alex Pretti and has spent the subsequent days advocating for a nationwide nursing strike. But it's not just the related subreddits. r/catbongos, the sub for sharing videos of rapidly patting a cat's butt, has welcomed MAGA and ICE chuds to fuck right the hell off. r/silksong has developed a new strain of anti-ICE silk posting. But the real mark the chuds have lost the mandate from Reddit? r/massive cocks posters are posting their porn with anti-ICE titles and descriptions. As John Waters so famously said in, this was actually a little difficult to verify, either the 2005 documentary How Porn Conquered the World or the other 2005 documentary Inside Deep Throat, remember, pornographers have always been on our side, brave, ready to fight for our rights. Smut is our friend. Less than fun fact, trying to trace the source of that quote on Google nowadays mostly populates with "you totally have a porn addiction" bullshit, which, as a reminder, porn addiction is a completely unscientific thing made up by Christo nationalists who are trying to excuse having thoughts. Look, it doesn't make any sense, and I'm not even going to try and pretend that it does. I wasn't going to run any vet visit stories this week, but then we all got really excited, then disappointed, when Air Force One circled back from its Davos flight plan, and a certain fascist turned out to be fine. Mostly. Within 12 hours of arriving in Davos, Trump had gone on an obscene fascistic rant about American military might and internal politics at, again, the World Economic Forum. But don't worry, Gavin Trump 3.0 Newsom was also there and did the same thing. Please, I'm begging you, notice that all Trump 3.0 Newsom does is copy the original recipe. Why is this in Vet Visit? Well, first, Some may assume these rants are signs of Trump's declining mental health. Personally, that sounds like an ableist excuse to not reckon with the man doing exactly what he said he would to me. No, it's here because also within 12 hours of killing all our brief jolts of hope that it had finally happened, the 79-year-old dictator with a bad heart who refuses to wear his doctor-prescribed compression socks, who's on aspirin therapy, who is corpse white where he isn't inhumanly orange, developed another one of those constant hellish bruises from, per the White House, so inherently suspect and not to be believed, allegedly brushing against a table, which is such a pathetic excuse I can't imagine what the reality actually would be. Actually, I have a second thing to make fun of this fascist over, and look, I don't make fun of people for things they can't control. Hairstyles and fashion, especially of the oligarchs, those I will mock to high heavens, but not disabilities, height, whatever. Things about yourself that you cannot change, unlike Gavin Trump 3.0 Newsom, who will gladly and gleefully use haha gay as both setup and punchline. But what I will mock? When a pathetic, dying fascist is sensitive about his height after 79 years that he could have spent getting over it. Trump's official recorded height is 6'3", but we all know that doesn't really mean much. His medical staff have openly fudged numbers on multiple occasions in 2 different administrations. I'm not saying I trust a single one of these other boys to not lie about their heights. Men's egos are so delicate. But there is a certain preponderance of evidence to the contrary. For example, Gavin, Trump 3.0 Newsom, also claims to be 6'3". See, he literally can't even come up with his own fake height. Elon Musk claims to be 6'2". As does J.D. Vance. And Prince William is a well-documented 6'3", too. Oh well, why is it that chuds simply cannot be normal about trans women? Easy answer, they're reactionaries who need something to react to, or they have to address the emptiness within their souls. The more complex, but equally true answer, because we lay bare that the perceived immutability of gender and sex is a lie told to lend credence to the implicit superiority of men, which sits as the core, unaddressed tenet of our patriarchal world. What am I talking about? Oh, well, Six the Musical, of course. If you haven't heard of it, it's a modern retelling of the lives of the 6 wives of Henry VIII as a who suffered the most sing-off. It first debuted in 2017 in Edinburgh and has been running on Broadway since 2021. And on January 16th, the new cast for the 2026 season was revealed. It took a few days, but by the 18th, the reactionary twits who make up most of X's non-bot user base, actually most of the bots too, learned Dylan Mulvaney, the trans woman they'd previously harassed for doing an ad for beer, has been cast as Anne Boleyn. And being the normal and extremely well-adjusted people and bots they are, brigaded and harassed the musical's X account to the degree the producers locked and privated the whole account, and in a moment that really shouldn't be as refreshing as it was, have even defended Mulvaney. We all know none of these people were going to see Six before Mulvaney was cast, not even because it's a musical, not even because one of the co-creators is non-binary, not even because Broadway is unapproachably expensive for most of humanity, but because they're reactionaries looking for something to be angry about. Like a classically trained singer like Mulvaney getting cast in a Broadway show they don't give a single solitary shit about. The musical's Instagram is still up and running just fine, which further raises the question, why even keep using the X account? To which their answer seems to have been, we just aren't. Want to hear about a fun coincidence? Well, you're still watching, so I assume so. Did you know that Dylan Mulvaney went to one of the most prestigious musicology schools in the country? Did you also know one of Blue Sky's recent main characters went to the same school? Don't worry, there's no milkshake ducking here, just a fun, if harrowing at times story, though there is a duck, a musicology duck. And yet for those in the know, while the coming tale may sound like a fake story, it's actually par for the course for the mishap-inclined duck, with previous events detailed in this cute little summary. As for this week's mishap, I welcome you to read it for yourself. The sordid tale of an entire bus being, let's say, soft kidnapped by a driver who simply decided he was driving another route, no matter what anyone said. I've linked the thread in the description, but I'll leave you with these little teasers. I just woke up from a nap, and somehow, while I was asleep, everyone on the bus has figured out we are not going to the right place. They switched drivers at a rest stop, and the new driver is telling everyone that they're the ones on the wrong bus? I think I might end up in Vienna, Virginia, but I'm not sure. So I've been wanting to do more media discussion work, but there's been so much real news, and, well, I'm just one woman, give or take a Jules co-writing. But this week, before everything went to hell, and even more so after everything went to hell, I'm taking some time for fun media stuff. So, to that end, first up, Rig Riot. Last week, I streamed a delightful little game heavily inspired by Armored Core 6 with a roguelite twist reminiscent of Risk of Rain 2. It's only a demo, so I expected it to hold my attention for maybe an hour or two. The stream lasted 4.5 hours. There were certainly some rough spots. My final run soft-locked the game as I extracted, though it did save all my loot, after hitting single-digit frame rates, but that had more to do with the utterly broken build I had developed, which involved infinitely spreading Jade and Lightning and health-stealing nanites to every enemy on the map at once. There's also a bit of jank that you get from particularly ambitious indie games, where some GUI choices only really make sense to the designer once they're a bit lost in the sauce, but nothing completely intolerable. Also some weirdness with the lock-on that the dev has admitted is also definitely a work in progress. Rig Riot's graphics hit that sweet spot of crunchy, low-poly 3D graphics, evoking the spirit, if not the reality, of the N64 era a la Dusk and Nightmare Cart. It meshes so well with the grindy, roguelike gameplay and exploitation setting. The weapons all feel pretty good, with some room for improvement before the game's April release date. Well, aside from the laser shotgun, which again, the dev who, full disclosure, did pop up in my chat, admits needs some work, and the pile bunker, which, in this mutt's sacrilegious opinion, feels better than AC6's Ashmead. One standout point, the sound design for every weapon wags. From the meaty ka-chunk of the sniper cannon's bolt prepping the next shot, to the angry chatter of the Cloud Gatling gun, to the earth-rattling explosion and bone-shaking reverberation of the pile bunker's fire and reload. And then there's the per-mission weapon and mech mods. Roguelikes have to play at a careful balance between giving you enough information to make informed choices and letting the player feel like they're clever for learning how to build around whatever they end up with. Rig Riot leans harder into the informed choices side, but trying to parse how the gun mods will work with the 3 melee weapons is a mysterious delight for me. Not for the late-run bosses who melted under my dual-shot pile bunker, which dropped a burning debuff for 60% of their base damage every swing. Do you have any idea how much I love Digimon? Like, as a franchise, it's always been one that hits me right in the tender bits. Last time I visited my mother, my neighbor and the mother of my first friend in kindergarten showed me homework her son had done and she'd found while getting ready to move, about how he and I played pretend as kids. He was always WarGreymon, and apparently I was always Gatomon or Angelomon, in case you were wondering if there were any signs I was a trans girl from an early age. There were so many. As an adult, my game design loving tale stumbled into the 2020 Digimon TCG, ended up as a competitive grinder who went all the way to Nats twice. In fact, in one of those, I think I was technically the highest placed girl, which is both impressive and mildly depressing. I fell off when Nats moved to Florida and Texas, 2 states I couldn't safely visit, and given the ongoing horrors, I can't really travel within the US as a trans woman, even now that they've moved the Nats back to less dangerous states. But that doesn't mean I can't talk about how cool new cards are, and 2 of my pet decks just got amazing cards spoiled. First up, yes, I was a Shine Grey girly pup, and Bandai used my gloriously thick Dragon Sun to spoil the first duel card. While I'm a bit salty Bandai keeps pushing standalone archetypes into these rainbow decks using all the mons from a given show, this still works fine in Shine, so I am hype. The flavor is on point with options, Digimon's version of sorceries in MTG, contextualized as specific Digimon's attacks. This reads to me as incorporating the attack into the action of evolution, allowing you to pay a little bit more to get the option effect as part of the evolving another Digimon into ShineGreymon. That's just cool. It's also a really good card. But then there's some cute details my frothing judge brain obliged me to point out as well. The ShineGreymon has no play cost, so search effects that check play cost and Black's cost-based removal won't be able to hit the boy. However, depending on whether Shine still counts as an option while in play, it might just auto-die to the Justimon deck, which give them some strength, I guess. While I'm talking about the starter decks, I should also mention Bandai, they didn't actually reveal this, it was previously established, but it was a nice reminder that the other deck, coming out at the same time, will be a Beat Break deck, which I only recently realized that show has a dub. I'm sorry, I can't watch subs, I'm a monster, I know. And, oh, it's a delight. Unfortunately, we did also see that the tamers in the Data Squad deck will be a Thomas Marcus duo tamer and a Yoshino Keenan duo tamer, which feels like a slight to me, given that I played Rosemon as well, but not Rave or Mirage Gauga, but yeah, that's pretty in keeping. The other set of cards that I want to gush about are the new bees! No, the Royal Base deck has never really been amazing, but I love me some bugs, and robot bees with a hot as hell queen bee is all I really need in my TCGs. I'd kept my eyes on the bees, seeing the BT23 ones, but these new EX11 bees have fixed one of the deck's biggest issues in my opinion. Elevator pitch for those of you who don't play the Digimon TCG, the player's health takes the shape of security, 5 face-down cards pulled from the top of your deck after drawing your first hand. The Royal Base's big mechanic is swapping your face-down security cards for face-up B cards, which provide different passive effects, and many of the active effects of in-play cards get incrementally better based on the number of face-up security Bs you have. Its 2 biggest issues were 1, a general lack of card draw, and a limited number of ways to increase your security count once it started going down. Most of the existing cards required that you pull one out, whether it be face down or not, in order to add another card. No way to really increase the count. The EX11Bs help solve both issues while also giving us a new Queebeemon, which is frankly the thing I'm actually here for. The big key is that the new Fun Bee, Forge Bee, Queen Bee, and the new Winner all allow you to add cards to security without necessarily needing to pull a corresponding card out, while the new Peroromon and Honeycomb Commander Emblem, I swear they make these annoying to say, help beef up the deck's mid-card draw. So, hell yeah! So, I mentioned it a couple weeks ago that I had some half or partially written book reviews, and since Persephone Effect is coming out in 2 days when you're seeing this, I'm gonna get them out there now. First, I never really explained it, but I don't score my reviews. If I'm writing a scored review, it's for somewhere like Goodreads, Itch, or a similar store, and then, unless I'm actively displeased with the book, I'm giving it 5 stars, because it's not about my actual opinion, but the store's piss-ass algorithm. So, I just wanted to get that out of the way. I don't score things. I'm giving you my opinion on them. I cannot quantify that. The first book that I'm talking about, reviewing, recommending, whatever, is Autumn Wolf's That Night I Got Married to a Werewolf, the sequel to Autumn's breakout hit, That Night I Got Dragged Off by a Werewolf. I forgot to record this bit because I am smart like that. I really do quite enjoy Married to a Werewolf. Unfortunately, I'm having to hold it up against the standard that its own first book dragged off set, which is a very high standard, and Frankly, it's in a trilogy, so it's also doing the middle of a trilogy, having to play off of what was already established and set up for the final beat of it. So it's suffering from, frankly, its success to an extent. If you're used to Autumn's Dresden File-inspired Monstrous Maidens books, you should know at least a bit of what you're in for, which is to say, a monster lover transbian romance. Unlike the first book, which felt like an even balance between Mars and Lilith, the new book is heavily focused on Lilith as she burns the candle at both ends and everyone around her tries to convince her to relax and be a bit selfish, which she naturally takes the wrong way. I'd point out how similar that is to Autumn herself, but she'd likely run away to one of her 3 jobs with her fingers in her ears while paying for 2 meals a week for her trans sisters, so very little would actually change. The new focus on the Dubois pack, and especially its matriarch, draw the focus away from Mars and Lilith, but the pack doesn't always feel fleshed out enough to deserve the attention. Not to say there isn't clearly stuff going on with them behind the scenes, but the show and tell balance isn't quite in my personal sweet spot. Personally, I also feel like the sex in the first book was better than... I've also refused to shut the hell up about the lesbian roadhead from Dragged Off since I read it, so that was always going to happen. Extra credit where it's due, Autumn managed to write a character who is somehow in a polyamorous relationship while being racist? Speciesist? With a mild whiff of carrying on the bloodline lesbophobia that scans perfectly? Still not sure how she did that, but then she also wrote a scene which, for YouTube reasons, I shall only refer to as the girl dinner scene. If you know, you know. Complimentary. But in the best summation I can give, I had to read that scene twice, then, after explaining it to Jules, ask her, does this count as auto-cannibalism, self-cessed, a bit of both, or something entirely new? We decided it was a bit of both, and that Autumn is wildly mischaracterized, often by herself, as a cozy romantasy author. Girls also got great horror chops, and I didn't even have time to talk about her action scenes because they wag. I couldn't not include a review of the last Gunmetal Olympus book I read, right? Not with Persephone Effect out in mere days. B, what the fuck do you mean it's nearly 205,000 words? Keeping the Peace is actually the second of Triss' husband's forays into the Gunmetal Olympus setting, her first being Pink Diamond, which I've actually reviewed before, link in the description. Triss saw a cyberpunk setting populated by messy lesbian gods and decided what it needed was a post-transition Sam Spade, still as hard-boiled even sans eggshell. Where Pink Diamond was a novella exploring the underbelly of Elysium and how even those nestled deep in her bowels never truly escape the machinations of the 12. Husband's debut novel is more focused on the often self-imposed problems of the blessed, the upper crust of society whose position must be maintained by playing to the whims of the humanly mercurial gods of Elysium. Fave dropped me into an awkward position because how do I review such a well-executed mystery without spoiling the central conceit? Especially when I'm still not convinced one of the victims was actually killed. What I can say without spoiling is this. Husband is a master of noir. She understands so completely that a noir works when every character is broken, be it by their own choices or perceptions, or the things the world and others have done to them. They're broken. They can often recognize their state, but misidentify the cause and usually apply the wrong fixes. Read Keeping the Peace if you enjoy a mystery written to be solved by the reader, to be interrogated and picked apart. Read it if you want a mystery that trusts you as the reader to catch a character intentionally misremembering a name, while still letting the investigator draw and share her own conclusions with you, just as you start to think she might not have caught it herself. Screw it, let's see if I can fit all 3 micro video reviews in here at once. I have previously gushed about K.F. Atkinson's A Quiet Universe, the first of her Fleet and Fabricant sci-fi horror series, and Kennel Me, A Sea of Silence took those bones and ran with them. Where the first book felt like a descent into hopeless madness as Sarah's memories were cracked open and rewritten so thoroughly, neither she nor the reader could truly parse which were real in an attempt to break her last shred of hope for an outcome that didn't include the corpses of everyone she loved laying at her feet. The second book is about the horror of fighting tooth and nail for a happy ending and finding that for all the struggle, the reward itself was only temporary. Atkinson understands and communicates the way only the oppressed can, the terror of knowing your basic dignities will be torn away. Not out of necessity, not even because it's convenient for the majority, sometimes not even truly out of malice, but because doing so reminds even the lowest man that there are still those lower than him. While their betters may abuse them, there's always the racialized, the queer, the fabricants, and the trans who can be tortured with impunity. I had to take a break about halfway through A Sea of Silence, and I don't think I can give a piece of horror higher praise than that. Or, so I thought until I picked it back up again and learned the back half focuses on Sarah confronting the jagged, angry thing she's allowed the contempt her society holds her in to shape her into. Confronting the ways she's allowed the harm done to her to turn her into a weapon of the same system, blindly wielded against her loved ones. And even those ideas are silhouetted by an escape, a world without pain, without conflict, but which mandates conformity, which will only allow Sarah a semblance, a shadow play of survival, if she gives up everything that made her life her own, much less worth living. Fuck! And thank you, K.F. Atkinson, for writing horror I cannot set down, even while it's resonating against my very being, like holding a tuning fork of my own experiences directly to my teeth. I will read A Mask for the Sun, the final Fleet and Fabricant book, soon, but I need a break. And if I'm honest, I'm scared at how much that book's perspective character, Cora's, damage aligns with my own. So I might hit up Unlimited Combat Dolls, Atkinson's forthcoming sci-fi drama with horror elements first. I believe that's coming out on February 10th. We are concluding this episode with a special report submitted by Jules, our Tumblr correspondent. We all know Dashcon, right? The failed 2014 Tumblr convention, famous for a ball pit, baselessly alleged to have been both peed and possibly birthed in. Well, back in August 2025, a group of people totally unrelated to the original Dashcon decided,
my toxic trait is I think I could do Dashcon.
And did so with great success. Dashcon 2 2025 sold its 500 tickets out in under 20 minutes and played host to 550 attendees, including staff and volunteers. Well, they're doing it again this year. On January 17th, the official Dashcon 2 Tumblr blog announced that Maximilian Robespierre has staged a revolution, taken over the bouncy castle in a bid to dethrone the ball pit queen, and charged Sir Strange Eons with 2 counts of Dashcon conspiracy. What does the French revolutionary Maximilian Robespierre, who's been dead for 232 years, have to do with Dashcon 2, and why has he led a Dashcon 2 revolution? Yes, it is also called Dashcon 2. In order to answer these questions, we have to talk about what happened at the first Dashcon 2. You see, Strange Eons was knighted Sir Strange, Lord of Eons by Lachlan O'Neill, founder of the original Dashcon, current diabetic raccoon biologist, and who was, at the time, dressed as the Ball Pit Queen, following Strange's victory in a duel against the Muppet Joker, the keystone event of the con. However, when Simone, one of Dashcon 2's co-founders, attempted to honor the Ball Pit Queen, requesting onlookers kneel before her, New York Times bestselling author Jiranjay Zhao, dressed as Maximilian Robespierre, protested the existence of the Dashcon monarch and charged Sir Strange with the murder of the Muppet Joker, as well as the theft of a Miku binder the revolutionary alleged had been their Miku binder, not, as Dashcon 2 had claimed, Thomas Jefferson's Miku binder. All of this was further complicated as the Miku binder in question was first publicly seen in Abigail Thorne's video, Rationalizing Colonialism, How the U.S. Stole Indigenous American Land, Miss Thorne had donated the Miku binder to Dashcon 2 to be raffled off. We could have asked the Game of Thrones and Star Wars actress about where she acquired the Miku binder, but frankly, we assumed Abigail Thorne would laugh at us if we requested her comment on the provenance of a Miku binder. Thus, after challenging the Ball Pit Queen and First Knight of the Realm, Sir Strange took up her weapon, the Muppet Slayer, and slew Robespierre, smothering the nascent revolution. Or so was thought. Being aptly named the Muppet Slayer, Robespierre was not mortally wounded, and having recovered, now leads the revolution as both leader and martyr. Since the beginning of the revolution, Dashcon 2's organizers, maintaining a semblance of neutrality, have negotiated a tentative agreement between the revolutionary and Sir Strange, who has charged Robespierre with both treachery and being French, wherein the people of Dashcon 2 will now decide whose blood will be spilled at the end of this conflict. Whoever the people vote to execute, be that Robespierre or Sir Strange, they will be executed by guillotine, and their severed head will be auctioned off for charity per the 8 tenets of the Royal Revolutionary Put the Sword Down agreement. If that has you even remotely intrigued, I've linked a video by Sir Strange that will explain maybe like 45% of that. Dashcon 2 Vive la Révolution will be in Ontario, Canada on August 1st and 2nd. Tickets will go on sale on March 1st. We did also reach out for comment to the Dashcon 2 organizers, mostly questioning about the Muppet Joker's resurrection and whether that calls into question the Muppet Slayer's purported power, as well as... Actually, I don't believe we remembered to ask about the provenance of the Miku binder, but they have not had time to get back to us yet. Or that's what I would have said had I not checked my email at 10 last night. I foolishly told them that our deadline was at 8 a.m. MST, which is why I'm recording this at 7 a.m. MST. We specifically asked about the ticket cap, whether Strange or the Muppet Joker had issued the original challenge, because I was looking at the wrong video and never... That one was me being dumb. Question about the efficacy of the Muppet Slayer. To wit, on the ticket cap, it'll be higher, but not by much. The largest day, Saturday, will have 100 more people than last time. Our plan for expansion was to extend temporally, host a 2-day convention rather than 1 day, to make sure we have the skill set to properly scale up the convention in size for 2027. I'm sorry, that was just actual planning and responsibility, and in 2026 that hurts my brain. And then about the Muppet Slayer and the resurrection, I still refuse to explain. I always knew he'd come back one day. Death could only suppress that much raw Muppet fucker power for so long. You may quote me on that. Which, fair. Wardrobe change admittedly does kind of reveal where I had to do different recording sessions, doesn't it? Anyway, yeah, I forgot to do the schedule for this week, mostly because I hadn't fully written it when I was recording the last thing. Don't worry. We're watching Spy X Family in the Discord tonight. That's at all times are at 6, or all times are in MST. So Spy X Family in the Discord at 6 p.m. tonight, because I need something fun and stupid, and I feel like a bunch of you probably do too. Tomorrow I'm going to be playing more Vanquish, because also fun and stupid, and mecha wannabe dude who smokes like a chimney and is a delightful idiot. I will actually play Monster Hunter Wilds this time. I have a maybe thing for Wednesday. We'll see. It's up in the air. And then we'll be back with Night Rain on Saturday at noon. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Sure, let's go with that. Yeah, so that was a different thing, wasn't it? I wanted to try essentially pre-recording everything and then edit all together so that it goes up on Twitch at the normal time, and also maybe to everyone else at the normal time, or the time it's hopefully supposed to, at 8 a.m. We'll see how that went. I mean, you're presumably seeing it now, so you know how it went. Anyway, as a reminder, everything I do, written, video, streamed, whatever, is brought to you by viewers, readers, and listeners like you over on patreon.com/fen and coffee.com/fen for as little as $1 a month. So thank you all so very much. And yeah, also thank you very much to Jules, who we co-write a lot of our stuff and edit a lot of it together, but the Dashcon 2 thing was, a lot of that was Jules.